Hello and welcome everyone to Her Money Club Stories. My name is Raechelle Minney. I am the founder of Her Money Club. The intention for these beautiful discussions is to collect women's stories of how they've overcome various challenges related to money and to life, and the journey that unfolds within both of those elements. In Her Money Club, we talk a lot about aligning our money strategy with our life purpose and creating this thriving life and the process of that journey. So as we talk further, we're going to collect pieces of these journeys from all of these amazing women to expand us into more of what's possible, no matter where we are all at on that journey. Today, we have an amazing friend and human that I love talking to, Samantha. She is going to share more with us of her money story, and I'll give it up to you. Share a little bit just about who you are, where you're from, and what you are up to in the world.
I am so honored to be here and to be talking about this. It's kind of overwhelming to have this kind of conversation. My name is Samantha Pike. I live on Wolfe Island, which is a small island in the Thousand Islands in Canada. My journey with all of this, I guess, started in the fall of 2019. And it was at that point that I made a decision to change my life, basically. And then everything started to unfold from that point.
This all happened a little bit before you and I met. So it's interesting just watching your journey from my perspective. I'm curious to know, like, what made you decide? Like, I talk about making a decision and deciding a lot in my work. So what prompted that decision for you?
I guess it was the fall of 2019 was when I started to dive into the law of attraction, manifestation, like energy work. But the year prior, so 2018, I had just graduated from my behavioral psychology program, and I'd done really well. I was at the top of my class. I had all honors. Like, I worked really hard. I did really well. I was a very confusing student because I would be nominated for like awards and be nominated to join committees for the program. Like, I was such an all-star, and I knew that I wasn't going to pursue any of it. And it was such a weird dichotomy. That summer that I graduated, I was applying for jobs, and I'm applying knowing that I didn't want to do anything. I'm writing letters trying to convince somebody that I want a job working for them. And I'm like, I'm trying to convince myself at this point, like, I'm just like not in it, you know?
Yeah.
And I was really confused and I didn't know what to do. And after so much time trying to figure it out, there's this one question that popped into my head. And this was the question that I still use today. So it's, what would you rather do? And so I started there because it was a really simple question to ask in the moment. So like, I'm sitting on my couch, I'm feeling very overwhelmed with what I'm supposed to do with my life. And I would just answer the question, what would you rather do? And if in that moment it was make my bed, then I would make my bed. And the reason I found out later why it worked, it was like a ripple effect, because I was basically working towards alignment. I was constantly shifting my energy to alignment. And it starts with making your bed. Like, it sounds silly, but it literally builds on top of each other. So like, after you make your bed, what would you rather do? I would rather work on my huge to-do list that I have to do. Then that's what you do. So through this constant questioning of what would you rather do, I found my way into creating an Airbnb, and opportunities started popping up because I kept going with that question, what would you rather do? And my husband literally asked, we have a space, because we have rental properties. So he's like, we have a space opening up. Would you like to rent that as an Airbnb? I was like, yes. Like, these opportunities started popping up because I was kept falling on that, the answer within myself, right? Like, falling in love with that answer within myself and using that as my compass. That was for 2018. 2018 was a really hard year. And then, so by 2019, I was like, I feel where I'm supposed to be. Like, I feel like I'm doing things that feel really good. But okay, so I'm designing my life at this point. what do I want it to look like? Like that was a big realization. Like, oh, I get to design this. I get to have a designer life. Okay. And then that's when I met you. And then you saw what happened to me. That's kind of like the backstory of it all unfolding.
I love that. I've always used the quote like live life by design, not default. And I've had this quote with me since college, and something I've always used. My sister, who's very artistic, has created different like plaques and things for me that say that on it over time. And it wasn't like there's been like moments in my life where that's pulled through and I'm designing my life, right? But it wasn't until the last probably 2 or 3 years that I've committed and decided to like design my life. So I feel like we're both on similar trajectories of where that's taken us over the last few years, and just seeing like, holy crap, we can truly like design our life. It's real. Everyone, it's real.
It's a real thing.
Right. And I know we've discussed that a few times. Like if we could just scream that kind of stuff from the rooftops and like get everyone invited in to design their life, everything would be a magical world to live in. The next question I wanted to bring up with you, because this has been really powerful for me to watch in your life as you play with different rituals. So what are some of the rituals that you enjoy with money manifestation, or anything like ritualistic related to money?
This is really cool. So fall of 2019, I keep bringing that up because it was such a very like bolded headline chapter in my life. So fall of 2019, my girlfriend was like, hey, have you heard of Abraham Hicks? I said, I have, but like, I'm not super familiar. She's like, neither am I, but they are doing a conference in Boston. Let's go. So we went to Boston, went to this amazing conference, like so good. I'm getting chills actually just thinking about it. The next day, we went to Salem, which is a witch community. Like it's a modern day witch community. It's been there for hundreds of years. It talks about female empowerment and generations of trying to steal or trying to rid this community of its feminine power. And what was interesting about that community is that no matter how hard they tried to fight to get rid of it, it just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And now it's like this beautiful, very empowered, feminine energy town. So we went to this town right after we saw Abraham Hicks. And that's when I was introduced to all these really amazing manifestation rituals and spells. And it was all like childlike and play and fun and exciting. Like I would walk into a store and it was like, these medicines will cure you. And it's just all plant medicine, right? Like it's just mushrooms. And so there's all these books of recipes on how to heal your body. And then they'd have like wand shops. So like literal wand shops. There's one shop there that's the oldest wand shop. Anyways, so we went to these stores and we would just collect potions and collect affirmations and spell books. And so we were just collecting all these things. And some of it, like, so when we came home, we cast a spell. We cast a spell for our dream home. We came to this location and we, like, it sounds crazy, but we cast a spell on this property to have our dream home. And so that's one ritual that I have. I also do water. So I'll like set an intention for the water that I drink. So like every sip that I have of this water is subconsciously downloading into my brain. And I put a message across what I'm drinking to remind myself to state these feelings of abundance and to embody this powerful feeling. I also use smells, which are really helpful for me because there's certain things in human design. Some people respond better to physical senses. And for me, I guess it's smell. So I actually find it really helpful to be in, like, to experience in all senses, really, a high frequency. So something that feels really good. So any kind of, you can get any abundance spray. And when you spray it, it makes you feel good, right? And like, that's the bottom line. It's not that like I think I'm gonna spray this and like poof, like literally my whole world changes. I know it's not like that, but it's what you're doing in those moments is activating a feeling, a vibration in your body that excites you and makes you feel really good and puts you in alignment to your desires. I don't know. I feel like that was
Yep, all of that makes a lot of sense. And even from like a scientific, like Joe Dispenza talks about the actual science behind that. So for anyone who cares to have like the science-based backed information on it, like it's real and you can have fun and play with it like potions and wands and all the things. So yeah, it's super powerful. And think about any time like I know in yoga, I've been to different classes where they'll like spritz you with a scent, like if you're in Shavasana. And like I get tingles thinking about it right this moment, even though I'm not in that environment, because one of my friends who does it uses rose water, and rose water is very luxurious. Like there's this luxuriousness to it if it's real rose essential oil. And so things like that are just very powerful to awaken this embodiment of luxury and abundance and the things we want to feel in our body, and it does it instantly. So you don't have to have the $1 million in your bank account yet. You can feel that feeling and, to your point, align yourself to those desires and those like the future that you're embodying for yourself right now. So yeah, it's magical. And I think we both have so many stories of like the little tweaks that we've done over time to get to this place that we're at now, but we're also continuing to ascend into. And it's just so powerful how rituals and these little tweaks to how you feel each and every day allow you to create so many new possibilities. So
absolutely.
Before we leave this topic and transition to another one, any other, like I know you have a lot of stories, so any one big story you would want to share with how you feel like in embodying your most abundant self has led to an actual manifestation of something?
One that I like is, I mean, all my manifestations are amazing. And you're right. Like if I think about it, I'm like, well, there's so many to choose from. But okay, so when I manifested my dream car, I was conscious about what I was doing. So I knew that I wanted this car. Like it was like, the make, I knew everything about it. I had test driven it once before. I would let go. So the universe knew that I wanted this car. And so in the winter, so by the time fall would happen, I would be like, I'm going to let this go because I don't want to drive it in the winter. Like, I don't need to find it right now. I'm fine. Right. So I just became very content on it arriving when it did, because if the fall would happen and didn't show up, you'd be like, okay, it's off the hook. I'm going to find it in the spring. So like that was a very essential part in the manifestation, because I just was super relaxed about it. So then spring happens. I'm like, yep, ready to go. Let's go get this car is going to pop up. So my husband, meanwhile, is trying to convince me to get a different car. He's like, have you thought about this car? And he's showing me different cars. He's like, have you thought about this car? We drove to Ottawa one day, which, everyone knows where Ottawa is, right? In Canada. We drove up there. We just drove a different car entirely. And I was like, I don't know what else to tell you, but this is the car I want. Like, I'm not going to make any compromises. This is what I want. Mm-hmm. So he's like, okay, well, I want a car that we don't have to drive very far away to get to, that has very low mileage, is new, and is at this price. And I was like, okay. So the next day, my brother-in-law drove by this dealership, and he's like, your car is in this dealership. So my husband runs over to the dealership, and he's like, this car on their website, what had like a veil over top of it, like they were going to release this car to the public. So like this was a very special car. And so my husband runs over to the dealership, which was less than a 5-minute drive from my house. And I didn't know. So I'm on the couch, and he calls me, and he's like, what are you doing right now? And I could tell by his voice, I'm like, oh my God, he has my car. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm on the couch. Why? And he's like, you need to come over to the dealership, like the Hyundai dealer, they have your car. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get into my car. By the way, this whole time that I've been driving my old car, every time I got into it, I would pretend it was my car. Like I would drive the shit out of it. Like I was just like ripping around corners. I was just having fun in my present car, but not because I did know that was going to bring it to me faster, but also because I was just having fun. Right? I'm like, I'm going to have fun in this car that I'm in right now. I'm going to pretend that it's the car that I want. I'm going to drive the shit out of it. And I'm just going to like crank the tunes. And I'm just, I'm going to have fun where I am now. And so I get into my car, my old car, and I sit and I get in the seat. I turn on this song, this like beautiful song comes on. It's very like really upbeat and like powerful. And then all of a sudden my body kind of just like gets this surge of energy and I kind of just rise in my seat and I can feel like these almost like powerful wings kind of like stretching out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my car. Like I'm driving to my car right now. And so we get to the dealership. I'm the third one to test drive it that day. They had like 20 people that were wanting this car. And so like, I was like, I don't even need to test drive this. Like, this is mine. Mm-hmm. And so I did test drive it, but yeah, we got into the dealership and we just made it happen. We worked around some things and even selling our car, like in order for us to have this car, we need to sell our car that we had, but it was still in our driveway. Even that story is a crazy manifestation because Nick puts up the listing that night and he's like, I don't know, should I change the price? Like he's really good at manifesting. He just doesn't know it. He's like, should I change the price? I'm like, somebody will be in our driveway tomorrow morning. So we carry on, like we haven't heard anybody, we have the car listed or whatever. And somebody messages us in the afternoon, frantic, like, I want to buy your car. I need to buy your car right now. It's for my daughter. She just had a car accident. Like he tells us this whole story. Where are you? He had lost cars before. Like he had wanted a car and whatever. So he was really urgent that he very friendly, very nice. And so we meet him. He's like, yep, I'll give you cash for it. Like he was just like, let's get this done. Everything was just like so smooth, so fast. And what's crazy is his daughter was with him. And based on the picture, she found out where we lived and she came over to our house in the morning and was in our driveway.
Wow.
So like I said to Nick, I was like, someone will be in our driveway tomorrow morning looking at our car. Somebody was in our driveway the next morning looking at our car. Like it was that I was definitely in the flow in that moment of like, this is a manifestation I've been conscious about what's necessary in order for this to happen. And it's like totally played out, and I'm paying $20 less than I was paying for my old car.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Per the process. I love it. That's magical.
Yeah. So good.
Super good. It's funny in listening to these stories because I realize how much I've manifested over my life without knowing that I've manifested things. And so the power of knowing the process makes it that much more fun for one, but two, like the unfolding is that much more curious and exciting. So I love it. We're going to switch topics here because I think this is important to address and a lot of us don't talk about it. And it's probably a less fun topic to talk about, but it's more related to at different points, we have different things that either scare us about money or that we maybe aren't ready for. So what has been either currently or in your past, something that scares you about money?
Despite all of this, success, obviously my mindset about money has drastically changed from the beginning of my journey with this. But there's so much more that's still needs to be that I need to work on. There's so much more, like the scarcity part. For me, it's scarcity. It's like my natural state, if I'm not aware of it, is a lack mentality. It goes to show what being conscious about that does for you, because I'm not perfect. Like, I don't have a perfect mindset. Like, I don't wake up and it's like all day long I'm just high vibing up there. Like, that's not it. But it was this wake up call, this consciousness of, oh wow, like my relationship with money isn't very good. I don't treat money very well. If money and I were dating, money would be like, you're not a very good partner. Like, you constantly think that I'm never going to show up for you. Even if I do show up for you, you tell me that I'm not enough. You're insecure around me. Money feels bad around me. You know, it doesn't feel like lit up around me. I'm saying this is like the dark place, right, of my mind. This is like the dark truth, the honesty around this lack mentality, this fallback lack mentality. So if it isn't until that I start to, oh, here I go, here I start to talk about this, it's starting to run around in my brain. I'm catching it more often, and it's obviously opening up more possibilities for me. But yeah, I would have to say the lack scarcity mentality is a killer.
Yeah. So if you were to specifically finish the sentence, my biggest fear with money is
that there's never going to be enough, not enough. Like it's crazy. Like that I'll be poor, that I'll go without, it just seems so nuts when you say it out loud, but like you're just like, that I'll go without, that I'll be not okay, that I'll be unwell.
Yeah. And that's like the ultimate, like, what are you up against in the contrast of manifesting amazing things, and what's the contrast of that? Because there's always a contrast. So I like to bring it through, because I think we all have that, and we all get to address like working through that and navigating that in our lives. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Talk to me about, if you had just one thing to share with every woman in the world, just one thing that is, you feel like you figured out with the game of money, what would it be?
The game of money. Really, it's just trust. For me, it's just trust. Like, I've never gone without, despite how much I've told myself that, or warned myself, or tried to prepare myself for that. It's never happened. Like, I've always been okay. I am always going to be okay. That not only the universe has my back, but like the people in my life, like they're a part of the universe as well. Like, I am fully supported all the time. And it's like, anytime we're manifesting something, there's an element of doubt. And then when it arrives, you're like, why did I ever doubt that? So there's a lesson in that, and that it's just trust, right? Like riding that wave of trust, and it will work out. It will get there. It's going to happen. Like, it's a matter of time. It's just a matter of you know, walking through life and flipping up all the rocks and whatever it is. But yeah, that would be my biggest thing, is just trust and allow, and falling back on that.
Yeah. And I want to add to that, because in my own story, I have felt the depths of like what we all fear of. Like, I've been bankrupt before, like physically, mentally, emotionally bankrupt, like to the point of adrenal failure, to declaring bankruptcy, to all these things. And like, what's crazy about going through that experience is I didn't die. Like, my ego died, right? Like, that had an ego death in that experience. But like, I didn't die. I was not homeless. I had a home the entire time. I had family to take care of me. I figured out, what was wrong with my health. Like, I navigated through that and healed parts of what I didn't realize at the time were money wounds. Of my biggest fears came true, and I didn't die, right? So it's just so incredible to have gone through that, experienced it, now become more conscious and aware of what that actually meant to my healing process and journey, and been like, well, damn, I could do that again, and I could just go through it all over again, and probably with way more joy.
Right.
Because it's just wild, like wild, the fears that we have of something bad happening to us. But it's all working out for us.
Yeah, it's always working out. It's always working out for you. It's always working out. Like I had a similar moment, and it was the year of 2018 where I was really trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I had like nothing in my bank account. And I would not eat lunch because I couldn't afford it. I would eat dinner because my family would eat dinner together. So I would just eat from what they were eating. My sister found out, and she was like, I'm just going to like get you lunch. I'm like, but like that is exactly the to your point of like the universe taking care of you in those moments, right? Like you think that you are dying, but really it's like I still had a house, I still had somewhere to sleep, I had food, like I was still fine. But yeah, like you have these moments of your worst fears coming to life, and you're like, oh my God, look at that. It sucks, but like I survived, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Right. It really wasn't.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So in that process, I moved in with my grandfather because I refused to move back in with my mother. And it was the most beautiful time of my life. Like my grandfather passed away in the time that I spent with him. Like I was with him, living with him for about 4 months before he passed away. And I'm like so thankful and grateful that I was able, like as the firstborn grandchild, like to spend that time with him before he passed away. Like, oh, like so incredibly grateful for that opportunity. And that wouldn't have happened had I been, making all the money, not bankrupt, like all the things. Like I probably wouldn't have spent as much time with him. So I just like, it's wild what the universe brings to you when I would have had regrets if I didn't have that time spent with him, right? Because we all thought he was going to live forever. So yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
All right, let's wrap up a little bit here, but I want to know what projects you're working on that you want to share with the audience here, and if there's any support you would like.
There's a couple of things. Like I mentioned earlier in this conversation, I had an Airbnb. I say had because of COVID. So I've basically creating the Airbnb opened the world to me in many ways. And I created a community for Airbnb hosts to connect and exchange properties with each other for vacation. That's like kind of my personal passion project that I love working on, and that I am determined to make it a business of my own, for it to be making money of my own. Like that's my friggin' dream. Are we allowed to swear on here? Like that's my fucking dream. So I've got that project, and then I've also have a project called Our Manifestation Journey. So what is pretty cool about Our Manifestation Journey is that you can literally go back to the fall of 2019 when we started this and listen to what's happened since then. And like our conversation scratched the surface of what actually happened. This is like a really good teaser video for it, because there's so much that I didn't share that happened. And it was obviously through that journey that, I did this with my sister. I live with my sister. We did this together, and we didn't expect it to come to this point, but now we are offering our guidance to people now. So you can listen to our podcast, which will kind of guide you through our journey. And you can also reach out to us. We're now offering one-on-one or one-on-two calls. Our client right now, we have a client, and she's been lovely. And she wrote a review for us the other day, and she was like, you guys are life changers, which is again, like something that I never expected to kind of come out of everything. So that's what those are our two projects are. And then support. What was that last question?
Yeah, so I'll guide you through this. So support in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like looks like for you what exactly? Like in my mind, it looks like, okay, if anyone's listening to this and wants support with specifically what manifesting or mindset work, like that's kind of the 1-on-2, if you want to describe that and for the detail.
Yeah, so we would offer 1-on-2 coaching calls with people who are interested in up-leveling their manifestation game. So when we go on a call, we spend an hour with each, with the person, and we basically, our goal is to put them into alignment. So like when we've been listening to Abraham Hicks, it's always been about your vibration and getting into alignment. So we feel that has been what has brought all of our desires to us. And over the course of a year and a half, we have come up with all of these different ways that we can make that possible for us. And when we do, we notice that our desires come to full life. So we're basically an encyclopedia of ways to get into alignment with your desires. And so we would offer the coaching calls. Then afterwards, we offer mindset shifts and behavioral strategies to go with that. Because I have a background in behavioral psychology, I do a behavioral approach in many ways, because that's where people tend to feel more aligned when they feel like they're doing more physical things around their manifestations. So when we can give behavioral strategies, that's also really been really helpful for our clients as well. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think that's more clear and like guided in terms of who you help and what specifically you support. And then I think for support for you, in my mind, it's getting in touch with the people that you want for the community that you're building. So like for the Airbnb community, can you describe in more detail who specifically is a really good fit for that community?
Yes, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, this is where I would love more support, is in growing my community of super talented Airbnb hosts. So like their properties are like art to them. Like this is their brainchild, and the experience they offer their guests is very, very personal to them, to the hosts, right? Like they're creating something for their guests to experience. It's not just a place to stay. They've created a destination, and they're extremely passionate about it. So these are like iconic Airbnbs. So our community is pretty tight knit, because our criteria is, it's not that you have a place to stay that qualifies you. It's that you are very passionate about giving these amazing experiences to guests. So yeah, I would love support in growing that community. I would love support in creating this dreamy place where people can go and swap. So like the swapping part is so cool, because the community of itself is so like-minded. They understand what the host gives, right? So like there's this mutual exchange of give, and it's so cool. It's so cool to watch. So yeah, it's lovely.
That's beautiful. So if you know anyone who has an amazing Airbnb, or maybe you've stayed in an Airbnb that is super amazing, connect Sam with that person who is really embodying what an iconic Airbnb. I love that word. Like, that terminology stuck for me. So I think that's really what is true about the community that you're building. And where can people connect with you? On Instagram, I imagine, is probably a good place.
So Instagram is host to host is the community. So it's hosttohost.co on Instagram. And then our manifestation journey is at our manifestation journey.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Sam. I appreciate. Oh, hello, Natalie. And special end of day guest. Cheers.
Yeah. This is, I don't know if you're gonna. This is the other half of OMJ.
Yes.
We are the OMJ sisters.
We are. It's such a fun name.
Thanks everyone for listening in, and thank you, Sam, once again. I appreciate you sharing your stories and manifestations.
Thank you for having me.